If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening. I'm just kidding, guys. What's going on? How you doing? Welcome to episode 363 of Picks and Ponies here on the HHH Racing Podcast. Tried to do my best boss impression for you guys at the start. I am your host, Kyle Roscoe, with Howard Kravitz and the rest of the gang up in Saratoga for the week. I have duties to run the podcast for this week. Hopefully you guys will enjoy anyway. Welcome in. Thank you guys all so much for joining the shows. We have a really good one for you guys tonight as we're covering the late pick 5 for Jim Dandy Day on Saturday at Saratoga. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic day with a fantastic card and with extra shows sprinkled in for you guys, and I'll touch on those in a second. As you see scrolling along on the bottom of the side of the screen through the ticker, please go down below the video player, hit the like button, and please hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. It is completely free to do, and it helps us out because it not only shows us that you guys are enjoying the content, but it also shows, or it also pushes these videos out into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring like-minded horse players like yourself to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. Normal shows, guys. You'll obviously, yesterday on Betting and Boozing, myself and Charlie Freeman, co-host of the show, covered Del Mar for Bing Crosby Day on Saturday. It was a fantastic card. Very, very competitive fields. Lots of interesting opinions from both myself and Charlie. So please go watch that after you're done watching this live stream or as a replay, as of course we appreciate it. And this Saturday will be Saratoga today at 10:45 Eastern, 9:45 Central Time, of course, covering the early pick 5 on Jim Dandy Day as we're covering the late pick 5 for you tonight. Sunday will also be at 10:45 Eastern Time, 9:45 Central Time, Saratoga today for Sunday. Howard, that'll be the return of the boss, Howard Kravitz, as he'll touch on with the guys in the house as they'll be going to the races again that Sunday, but they'll have live from Saratoga Springs, New York, their opinions on the Sunday card, but also Saturday afternoon, at least for what's up on the channel right now, they are going to do a show from the rail on Jim Dandy Day. It looks to be very interesting. They're doing it completely live. They have a gazebo down on the rail. They're going to go through their races and go through their opinions. It's just it should be a fantastic show, so don't miss that and tune in Saturday at, and I'll get the exact time for you guys. My apologies. I actually don't know the exact time of what he put it up. It is 3:45 Central Time for 4:45 Eastern. It will be live on Saturday, so don't miss out on that. Of course, guys, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor is where you find not only every single episode of Picks and Ponies, every single episode of Betting and Boozing, and every single episode posted to the HHH Racing Podcast channel. It's also found in audio form wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor are our main ones. Those new Saratoga and Del Mar Power Picks are still available on a week-by-week basis with a discount if you're already subscribed to the normal Power Picks. So go to hhhracingpodcast.com, click the Power Picks tip sheet tab to be able to get yours today, done through PayPal or Venmo, whichever you like. And those normal Power Picks, guys, still go all throughout the year. Only $4 a week, and one of the most affordable and profitable tip sheets on all of YouTube. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast for that. Every Saturday, you'll get 2 tracks, price plays, spot plays, pick 5 grids, everything you need to be successful on any given Saturday. We got you covered with the HHH Racing Podcast Power Picks, again, for only $4 a weekend. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast for that. And as I mentioned before, you can see those previous editions of those Power Picks before you buy them, or if you just want to learn more about the podcast, HHH Racing Podcast is the place to do so. And my one guest tonight, folks, as we talked about, all those guys are up in Saratoga, but there's one man that has stayed behind to talk about some horses with me on Thursday night before he heads up to Saratoga. It's the man from the Saratoga Special, everyone's favorite, Paul Halloran. Paul, what's going on, my friend?
Someone's going to do it, Kyle. Someone's going to do it.
Well, you and I both know, Paul, the boss makes us work. It ain't going to be, it ain't going to be Howard this week. It's about relaxation up in Saratoga for the man. So you and I are left to do the bidding.
Yeah, because when I do get there, Kyle, I will be there for 8 days. So
well, that's true.
Don't feel too badly for me.
Well, I'm going to feel bad because unfortunately I'm the one that has to stay back. Look, again, I said this yesterday. Wedding comes first, always does. The beautiful Emma's out there. If I say anything bad, she will hear me. So I can't say anything bad. Of course, I'll see you guys around there next year. And Paul, this is a great sequence. There's a lot of competitive races, even though the Jim Dandy's only 6 horses. It's a pretty competitive 6. And going through, we'll obviously go through every single race. You're gonna laugh a little bit, Paul, because me and you, it doesn't happen too much, but you'll see based on the first race what I'm talking about. But we'll start it here. We'll go to the chat first, Paul. And again, cheers to everyone out there. It's Betting and Boozing on the HHH Racing Podcast for Picks and Ponies. So cheers to everyone out there. Hopefully you got a beverage in your hand and ready to go through these races with us, and you've looked at them already. Katie, of course, is here. Ralph Conti is here. Greg McSorley. I don't think I've seen Greg on our show. If he's a regular on the HHH Racing Podcast, Greg, thanks so much for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. Tom Espinoza is here. Ray Cromley is here. Jeremy Scott is here. Chris Walsh is here. What's going on, my friend? Thank you very much. Mike Saletta is here, of course. Ed Burke is here. 4 turf races and a grade 2. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to touch on as well. Only 1 dirt race in this sequence, Paul, and it's the grade 2 Jim Dandy. Again, just a fantastic sequence, and we'll jump right into it here, guys. Don't want to waste anyone's time.
Did you want to start with the Vanderbilt you mentioned?
Very correct. Yes, Paul. Absolutely. See, I got everything going on, and Paul's the one that keeps me in line. The first race we'll talk about real quick here is the grade 1 Alfred G. Vanderbilt handicap, and I'll show our good friends over at Equine Edge. I'll show this first. It kind of gives a really good look at it. Nakatomi, Twisted Ride, My Buddy B, Baby Yoda, who absolutely freaked last time, Subrogate, who freaked last time, and Skelly at your 6-5 morning line favorite for Asmussen and Ricardo Santana Jr. Equine Edge has it at 3-5 versus 6-1 for Baby Yoda, 4-1 for Subrogate, and 4-1 for Nakatomi, Paul. And I won't show the PPs necessarily for this race because we'll get into the late pick 5. But actually, I'll show the time form for this race because there's one very open thing here. You can see Skelly really pretty far on the lead by himself. Obviously, that's where he loves to be, is right out to the lead. And again, Baby Yoda was towards the lead last time. So was Subrogate, but Skelly is about as fast as they come, Paul.
He is. But I got to tell you, Subrogate's pretty fast.
Yeah.
And Baby Yoda is someone turned a switch on prior to this year. Well, actually, not prior to this year. Prior to the last 2 races. I was there for the True North, and it was not the strongest field, but boy, did he demolish that field with a career high. I think Kyle Twisted Ride might be scratching to run in the DeFrancis Dash at Laurel.
Correct. Yep.
So we could be down to 5.
Yep, and that's even more speed taken out of the race, Paul. Realistically speaking,
yeah, Twisted Ride can, especially with Kendrick up.
Yep.
Ironically, 5 minutes before, I'm previewing this race for the Saturday Saratoga special, which we encourage everyone to read at thisisHorseRacing.com. Right. There will be a quiz. And 5 minutes before the show, I got off the phone with the trainer of the 3, who was a real long shot, but very interesting story. This young woman, it's her 99th start as a trainer, and she's sending a horse out in the grade 1 AG Ville, a horse that she claimed for $25,000 3 months ago at Turfway. So, but don't sleep on Nakatomi, who, boy, do I wish ran second in the Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Yep.
Would not have won the BCBC, but would have come home with a couple of commas in my bankroll instead of 1. But you know what? That horse is good, and plenty of time off since the Dubai race. Didn't have the most perfect trip in the world. It's a very good race that Skelly could win by 3 or 4. You know what I mean? You got to know that going in, but I don't know. Do you want to take an odds on in this race? I mean, there's more than one horse that Skelly has. There's legitimately 3 other horses who, at least on paper, can win.
I was going to say, it's either really Skelly, like you said, by like 3 lengths because he gets loose on the lead, or you can realistically easily see 3 others winning this race, especially with the numbers they've put up. I'll tell you what, Paul, if the pace heats up, Nakatomi is easily the best closer in that race. So he can easily get up in a race like that if there's enough pace on board.
I agree. And you got to think, Tyler's just going to let them go and get the trip he wants. And, if he can get there, he can get there. But, yeah, the thing about Skelly, who's in unbelievable form with really good numbers. But, if you're looking at company lines,
yep.
He's never won anything beyond a grade 3.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, this is a grade 1, folks. I believe I'm correct in that. I should check the early TPs. I'm pretty sure there's nothing in his first 6 races that would show a graded.
No,
ran 3rd in the Vosburg. No, that's Baby Yoda. Come on, Paul.
No, he ran 4th in the Forgo. That's the Baby Yoda as well. It just switched on me. No, the highest he's ran in is a grade 3 twice.
Yeah,
granted, winning both pretty convincingly, but still points.
Yeah, there. I mean, you know what? It's Saratoga. It's the thing is, you might get a higher price than you should on a subrogate or a Baby Yoda.
Right.
I agree with you on Nakatomi, Kyle, but I'll be honest with you. I don't want him as the second choice, considering he needs the race to develop how you said it could, and we all know it could. But I don't know. Price-wise, I would be way more attracted to either Baby Yoda or subrogate at 7-2 than Nakatomi at 5-2.
Yeah, especially in a 6-horse field, Paul. It's basically either take Skelly or you beat Skelly. There's no like including him with others. Unless you're trying to think bombs.
No. If you're playing a caveman, you may not use no. And even if I'll tell you what. Even if you want to beat him, you should single.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're drinking alcohol, Kyle, on a Thursday night?
I drank alcohol. Betting and boozing yesterday, Paul. I'll drink, Saturday morning. When in Rome, Paul. Got to celebrate.
Yeah, I hear you. Jesus. Well, I have writing to do when we're done. If people want to read a coherent Vanderbilt preview in Saturday's special, I'll be drinking water right now.
But hey, you get a little loose, Paul, and the next thing you know, you're hitting 6 out of 6 races this sequence.
By the way, Kyle, I did also speak to George Duat Jr., the trainer of Subrogate today.
Yeah,
and he's he is a confident guy, and why wouldn't he? I know it's an optional claiming race, but boy, that horse ran off the screen last time.
I mean, was never looked like a loser, either Baby Yoda or Subrogate in that race. I mean, they both romped in their respective races, and Baby Yoda definitely to my detriment. I did not see that one coming. That's for dang sure. But Subrogate off that 99 showed he continuously improved, and obviously this is a step up in competition, but the numbers back it up, Paul, and he definitely has a chance here and will be a low price to boot.
His dad ran a pretty good race at Saratoga once upon a time, Arrogate. I believe the fastest 1.25-mile race that's ever been run at Saratoga.
And I still think that stands to this day, if I remember.
I think a 114 maybe buyer, 9-1. Missed that one.
Ridiculous.
But I got it back in the Breeders' Cup Classic when we hit that pick 6 with them.
Yep, I remember. Yep, that's a great story in and of itself. All right, Paul, let's keep moving here. Let's get to race number 8.
Here we go.
Race number 8 starts the late pick 5, and it's a very tough maiden special weight for fillies and mares 3 years old and up. 100,000 on the line, and I'll show the morning lines through equine edge first. The morning line favorite is number 1 on the inside. Scarlet Poppy for Wesley Ward. Flavian Pratt takes the mount there. Arisau is your second choice at 7-2 for Chad and Irad. Third choice is on the morning line is 9-2. The 7 La Morna for Bill Mott and Jose Ortiz. Look at this, Paul. I mean, you want to talk our friends over at Equine Edge, 35-1 on their morning line for that 9-2 7 horse. Wow. That's not something you see every day. Either way, Paul, I'll show you our picks right now. We're both lockstep on the top, 2-1 morning line. Nothing too creative, Paul, but you want to talk about a horse that's been absolutely lighting up the Oklahoma. This is definitely the one you're looking at.
Yes, this horse, and this horse chased a much the best winner last out in Risk Threshold. Risk Threshold was in total control of that race. This horse, took a buyer jump. No real knocks other than the price. These maiden special turf sprints. You may not be anxious to take 2-1, but I picked the horse on top, and I certainly think the horse is the most likely winner. But I'll be shopping for prices elsewhere in the race.
I mean, absolutely, and I'll show time for him, Paul. They have Scarlet Poppy on the lead for West, as where Wesley Ward should be. Aunt Nona is a horse, number 5 horse for NYRA and Kimmel. That should be pretty close up as well. But I'll tell you, if Scarlet Poppy has showed that she is as fast as she was last race in this one, I think she could have it pretty easily on the front end. But in the way she's been working, I mean, Wesley Ward's always worked that, pretty fast, but 46-2 on the Oklahoma track on the turf is no joke.
Yeah, and throw in the fact you get this guy named Pratt who rides the turf fairly well, actually.
From what I've been told, our little birdie told me that Pratt rides pretty well on the turf. Day Dawning is a horse at 10-1 morning line. Paul, you're talking about shopping around. Jonathan Thomas always brings out his good stuff at Saratoga. Looks a little slow, but definitely one that can improve.
Well, I picked that horse second, Kyle. And I'll tell you what. Now I know it was Horseshoe Indianapolis, but that race that Day Dawning ran in last time it had some traffic. It wasn't major, but it wasn't the perfectly clean trip. Certainly not the type of trip you want to see if you bet at 4-5. But horses coming out of that race, 5 have run, and all 5 have improved their buyer figure in the next start. You mentioned Jonathan Thomas. You get Johnny V. I think the price drifts up because it's the Horseshoe Indianapolis running line. And I could absolutely see a 1-8 coming back here. I hope I see a 1-8 coming back here.
Absolutely. I mean, and the thing I like, Paul, about this, even though, she ran at Horseshoe last time, she was immediately shipped up to Saratoga. You see those last 2 works are on the Oklahoma training track. And this was the spot they were pointing to the whole time. So it's not necessarily like this horse is, stationed at a place like Horseshoe. Jonathan Thomas, ships around. You see, I mean, this horse even has a work at Delaware. But this is one that's pointed towards this spot, Paul, which I think you might get all of 10-1, like you said, based on that Indiana running line. So I completely agree with you there. Definitely one that could be underneath. We both have the 4 Aerosol. Again, this is a horse that Chad always wanted to get to the turf. Both races rained off and both, ran pretty well, losing to Little Prankster, who's a very good horse in her own right, excuse me. But now coming back for her 4-year-old season, of course, that was last year. Chad's no stranger to good off layoffs, but you and I both, I have her second, you have her third, maybe an underneath play, especially if she's going to be bet low, like I would think she will be.
Yeah, Mendelssohn gets 12% winners with his turf sprinters. It's turned out to be a pretty good sire. It's a great hunch exacta here, Kyle, with the 8-4 with Jonathan Thomas, who trained Catholic Boy, who beat Mendelssohn in the Travers. It's a very happy day in my particular existence. But yeah, you mentioned Chad. Although, the Dam is an Irish horse, but was unraced. So there's not a lot of obvious pedigree on paper, but the Dam being by Hardspun it obviously helps. But again, I think Mr. Brown knows what he's doing, and this was his plan with this horse all the time. Now, First Row Partners is my friend Steve Lehman. You remember Day at the Spa and Goodnight Olive. Steve Lehman, and he and a bunch of folks he met literally sit in the first row of the box seats, hence First Row Partners. So doesn't mean anything toward the race, Kyle, but I like to we're here to educate people.
Paul, I love it. I'm willing to sit there and listen to your stories all day long. I'm more than
so. Yeah, I think this horse is a logical board horse. Could you get IRAD? Certainly, if you're playing ABC, he's an A or a B without question.
I don't disagree with you by any means. Of course, you're betting on the layoff, if you're taking him there, but Chad's no stranger doing pretty well off layoffs, being in that mid 20% range always.
Yeah, you don't even.
It doesn't make a whole lot of difference. And I like that this horse is finally going to get on turf. Tipple is the only other horse I had in there, Paul. Linda Rice brings out a horse that's been absolutely lighting up the dirt on the training track recently. Picks up Lascano, who's been normally first call. The dam has produced, 3 wins out of 12 starts on the turf for turf sprints. This horse is a half to Hootenanny, who is a really good Wesley Ward either sprinter or miler. So breeding's there. And Rider is a horse for Cassie that ran up at Woodbine, who was, again, in that, middling 6.5 to a mile at Woodbine. And again, a lot of winners and a lot of really good numbers here on the turf for the dam. So I think this is one that could definitely, I think you'll probably get somewhere, at least in the high singles, if not, because people, in these maidens, we all know, love to bet the bullets. So they see 3 in a row. This horse will probably take a little bit of money. Constitution's also not that bad on the turf. Constitution wins 13% of his turf sprinters. Obviously, we all know Constitution's a great sire. I'm not, not necessarily educating anyone on that, but just that between this horse lighting up the training track, Linda Rice, who's not necessarily the best first time out, but the breeding is there, Paul, and you're getting a nice price, at least on the morning line.
Well, Kyle, I would be happy to accept the role as president of the Linda Rice fan club. But there's an odd little stat that I'm going to throw at you with this horse that I found very surprising. Linda with 2-year-old first-time starters in turf sprints, 0 for 17.
I will push back on one thing.
Constitution, to your point, Constitution is a 16% 2-year-old first-time sire, is a 13% turf sprint sire. So kind of mixed messages. 3 bullets. You talk about workouts, 3 bullets in a row on the main, but again, it's a turf sprint at Saratoga. It's one of those things where I say it all the time, Kyle. After the race, you say, "How the hell did Linda Rice and Jose Lascano pay $28.60?"
Right. No, it's always with these turf sprints, Paul. One thing I will say is that these are 3-year-olds, Paul. So that is one thing.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes.
No, you're good.
So ignore the Linda start. Yes.
But the point's still there, though.
Well, no, this is not an excuse. It's an explanation. I had done the entire Friday card for the Power Picks, in which I think there's 3 2-year-old races, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'll give you one back, Paul. So Linda Rice, first-time starters on the turf, 4 for 60. So there's another one for you.
Which is odd, right? Isn't that odd?
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. But I think, at least underneath, I think this horse might be at least a look. First-time starter, probably won't get bet too much in a race like this. And with the breeding, definitely at least look underneath. But, Paul, we'll keep moving along. I'm going 1-4-2. Paul's going 1-8-4 to start off the late pick 5. Race number 9, Paul, inner turf again, mile and a 16th for 3-year-olds, an optional 80 claimer. I'll switch over the equine edge right now with another full field of 12 with one also eligible with the morning line favorite, a lukewarm 3-1 all the way to the outside for risk tolerance. Chad Brown, Manny Franco off a really good maiden win last time out. Second choice, the number 8, West Hollywood for Brad Cox and Flavian Pratt. Again, I've heard he rides pretty well on the turf. Third choice, a share between the other Chad Brown runner, although the other Chad Brown in this race, quote unquote, gets IRAD aboard. The number 2, Main Beach, and the number 3, Navy SEAL shares the 5-1 for Ward, picking up Dettori. And Paul, I'll switch over here. Let's say again, you're gonna, this is a thing all day we talk about. We're going again, Paul, right back at it. Both have the number 8, West Hollywood on top, 4-1 morning line. Paul, you and I, like I said, both have them on top, and hopefully this is a go to the lead, never look back type of race for West Hollywood.
Well, I'll tell you, Kyle, the Churchill turf horses, all the Kentucky horses have run well at the, not, you know what I'm saying, in general, the Kentucky horses have run well, but the turf horses have really run well up here. I have in my notes, Kyle, try to beat the 12. As you said, going to be the favorite because of Chad. Even with a long run to the turn, you still, the 12 is no bargain. You know, there's very little room for error for Manny Franco, who's riding typically well. I just thought that, you know, 4 slots in, coming off a good race in which he was 4 to 5 and got picked up. Going from Giroud to Pratt, no disrespect, Florent, but that is a big upgrade, especially on the turf. You know, if you were talking about a dirt route, it would be less of, it would still be an upgrade, but less of an upgrade. But in a turf route, it's a significant upgrade. So I want this horse at 4 to 1 all day more than I would want the 12 at 3 to 1.
I couldn't agree with you more. And Paul, you've heard enough yelling out of me of Florent's name in my mouth to know that I agree with you on that earlier point.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Kyle, unrelated to our conversation tonight, he really almost got idiomatic beat the other day.
Don't even get me started, Paul. I swear to God. That was like, you and I both get
you have
irritated
the fastest horse in the race. Run them off their feet. Do not keep the other 5 horses in the race.
You and I both get so mad about this. And it's like, you know, just because there's no speed and you can run a 24 and a 48, she's way faster than that and has shown that she can hold off horses going faster than that. I don't understand the need to bring in other horses into the race. I agree with you completely.
Right, because look at it this way, Carol. The way the race was run, okay, in those fractions, if Giroud had done what we would have wanted, which is about a second and a half faster after a half mile, might have been ahead by 8.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I
so anyway,
agree with you more. Off the tangent, but I couldn't agree with you more at all.
I think this horse, I think this West Hollywood horse has a pretty good shot. I don't think we're going to get 4 to 1 with Pratt and Cox, but you know, 3 to 1 be fine there.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I'll show the time form. Time form actually has this as a pretty fast pace. They actually have the 9 in front of the 8, the 9 Mo Go, who has been fast, but I think's been better running with a target. I mean, that last race was very good on the turf, but not nearly as fast as West Hollywood's last 2 races at all. Still low on the time form scale comparatively. And the fact that this Pratt has this horse, I don't think Pratt's going to mess around. I think Pratt's going to go straight to the lead if the 9 wants to sit right off the 8. I like that there's not a whole lot of speed to the 8's inside, Paul. There's other horses that have a little bit of speed. Main Beach is one of them. You going through the field right now. Marceau has shown a little bit of speed, but in slower races, you know, I mean, going 24 to the half mile, which you won't probably see in this race. Dancing Groom is slower, and then you have West Hollywood. So I like that even though he's drawn the 8, there's not a whole lot of main speed to his inside, Paul, which is one thing that I really like.
Yeah, there's some questions here, though. I mean, is Dettori going to be aggressive on this Navy SEAL? Is Jose Ortiz, who is on the Jose, the 10, Drunk on Saki? You got to figure from out there. Jose's going, so I see the fast pace. I see the fast pace time form, and despite the way the West Hollywood ran last time, Kyle, I'm not so sure Pratt is going to go with all that other speed. Okay. This was closed to win his maiden race, not from far back, but one going away at 1 mile and 1/8. So, you know, this horse, the distance is an issue. I think if all that other speed we talked about wants to go, Pratt would be more than happy to let them.
I mean, I also agree with you. Pratt, I trust, Paul. Pratt on the turf, I trust. We've seen it before how, you know, he gets, you know, not outbroken from the outside, but these horses are just being hustled. He'll just gladly set the pocket trip and blow by you at the top of the stretch. I wouldn't disagree with you at all. You touched on Navy SEAL, Paul. I have in third. You have second. This is one that was really interesting last time. We covered the Canterbury Derby, got completely washed out. Just rain all for the 3 days beforehand, completely off the turf. This horse ran the UAE Derby, but didn't run very well. Much better on the turf. So, you know, second time out for Ward on the turf. I think this horse definitely could show a step up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a somewhat aggressive placing. And, you know, first start in the U.S., off a little bit of a layoff. I like the fact that Ward ran him anyway,
Yeah.
because you got to think he figured just get a race into him over here, and it is what it is. But by Dubawi, just nothing but turf, nothing but turf breeding. This is a Coolmore bred horse, and I got to tell you, don't sleep on this horse, folks. Dettori got up at the wire in the last race today for my friend Kerry Bryan. Good for her, winning the race up at the Spa. I hope she wins a race at Colonial Saturday with St. James the Great.
Yes, sir.
That's when we'll really be rooting for her. But yeah, I think this 3 is very interesting, Kyle, and I'm also interested in what the final odds will land at. What do you think about that?
5-1, because you obviously Wesley's always going to be bet. So 5-1 I feel like is kind of fair on this horse. The only thing I know is that it's going to depend on how much the number 2 takes. Main Beach, who I have second as a horse for Chad out at Monmouth. Not the best races out there, of course, company line wise, but that last race, just losing the maiden, is the race that I really keyed in on. And I think that if he does stalk the pace like that, he definitely could be in the bunch, at least for a placing, Paul. It's all dependent on how much the IRAD tax, I think, affects the 2, because if IRAD gets bet on the 2, Main Beach, and Manny Franco with that top buyer in the field is going to be bet to the outside. West Hollywood's going to take money. I think you might get, at least every bit of that 5-1 with this horse. And I feel like just by kind of default, I know that this, Ward's going to take money. Tori's always going to take money on the turf, especially. But I feel like just by default, I feel like you're going to be at least third choice, if not fourth.
Yeah, no, I think there's going to be a 3 or 4 horses, Kyle, in that 7-2 to 6-1 range, 5-1 maybe. That you'll be able to make a solid case for in winning the race. So if there's value there, all you have to do is pick the right horse. That's all.
Yeah,
very simple.
Very simple game, Paul. You just got to pick the right horse out of 4 that can definitely win.
You just got to pick the right horse. That's all.
That's all on a Saratoga turf race. That's all you got to do, Paul, is just pick the winning horse. Easy peasy. Anyway, we'll keep moving on, guys, but I'm going 8-2-3. Paul's going 8-3-12 in race 9. Next race, Paul, is the big one on Saturday. It's the grade 2 Jim Dandy going 1 1/8 on the dirt for 3-year-olds with a very, very familiar face in this one. Well, to be fair, a lot of familiar faces, but one familiar face in here, and I'll go ahead and show the equine edge. Sierra Leone draws the rail, the number 1, even money on the morning line, Paul, which I thought was actually pretty steep, honestly. You got Fierceness at 9-5 and the 6 post to the outside, and you got the number 3 batting down, a good runner for Mott and Alvarado. Alvarado sees the gray, drew the 2-hole, 6-1 on the morning line, and the 2 longer shots, Gould's Gold and Pony Express, definitely I think would be a big surprise to a lot of people if they ended up winning this race. I would do a poll in the chat if they think we took Sierra Leone or not. I'll spare them the time that we waiting. I personally, I can't do it. I can't put him on top. For the fact that, one, he hasn't shown that he likes to win in the past couple of months, but also just because out of spite. But Paul, I'm with you. I really think Batten Down has a very good chance to be able to win this race and get jumps on on horses like Sierra Leone. I'm going Batten Down on top in this race at 5-1. Paul, you're going with our old familiar friend on the inside, Sierra Leone.
You have post-Derby stress syndrome? Kyle?
Yeah,
PDSS?
As opposed to the other one, which trainers suffer for. Yeah, the betters, I suffer from that one, absolutely.
Well, I got to tell you what, Kyle. I looked at this race for a while. I was very, very happy to bet Batten Down at $3.30 to 1 in the Ohio Derby. Was it Copper Tack? There was someone who was way, way, way over betting that race. Was it Copper Tax?
Yeah, here, I'll show you right now. Yeah, Catching Freedom, excuse me. Yeah, Catching Freedom.
Catching Freedom. Yeah.
2-5 in that race.
He finished 2 days ago.
But I was with you completely.
I got to tell you, Howard, you're not Howard
Man.
Saratoga. Kyle, I just think if Sierra Leone does not win this race, I'm not so sure what 3-year-old
Yes.
or other race, because Seize the Gray is speed, Batten Down is speed. Very interesting move by John Sadler, who is not a shipper. You remember he had never won a Breeders' Cup race till Accelerate about 5 years ago. John, Baffert sends horses across the country at the drop of a hat, but this is a very aggressive move by Sadler. And I don't know if it's owner driven or whatever, but anyway, you don't. I assume they're not shipping 3,000 miles to rate the horse.
Correct.
Okay. Gould's Gold is a McPeak horse who probably will sit off of it. And then, the all-time wild card in Fierceness, Fierceness apparently, you look at the lines, say, well, he wants to have things his own way on the front end, but boy, doesn't it look like he'd have to work pretty hard to get to the front in this race?
Yep. I don't disagree with you by any means. That's why we both have him third. I'm sure. I completely agree with you, Paul. I had him on top the entire time because I agree. If he doesn't win this race, Paul, I don't know what race unless something freakish happens at the break where, like Fierceness gets away on the lead or, Seize the Gray gets away on the lead. If the pace heats up, this one it completely shapes up for Sierra. And if he can't win this race, I don't know what race he'll end up winning in the future. I couldn't agree with you more. Batten Down the race, granted, it was his slowest buyer, Paul, but I was trying to key in on that race at Keeneland where he did show a little bit of ability to be able to rate. Granted, it wasn't necessarily the biggest closing punch like we've seen from Sierra Leone, but he showed the ability to be able to rate off the pace, not necessarily going to the lead. Granted, his best races, of course, have been run either on or near the lead. Like I said, I might be grasping at straws, Paul, to try and find a price and beat the horse that beat us up so many times, but I think he's a very good improving horse. Talk about Matt Bernier's angle, the paired buyer tops, looking to take another step forward. We've talked at length about the family that this horse is a part of with Tacitus and all those others in there. Bill Mott, just makes a ton of sense. He's just going to have to show, I think, that he can't win from the lead.
Yeah, hey, look, regardless of who I bet, this is certainly the horse I'm rooting for. With Junior to win this race and hopefully go on to the Travers. And so again, there is a lot of other speed, but this horse has a win at 1.25 miles already. This is back to 1.1 miles, same distance as the Ohio Derby. So to your point, he may not need to be on the lead. It was the Grade 3 Ohio Derby. It wasn't the strongest field. Although Chasing Freedom took legit money in the Kentucky Derby, right? This horse really ran well. There was not 1 second of that race that Batten Down wasn't going to win the race.
Yep. I agree.
Forget about Catching Freedom or catching anything else. There was not a second in that race that he was, which, as I say, every once in a while, the blind squirrel finds a nut. At 3-1, it was nice to have a stress-free race.
Me and you both, Paul. So, I was completely with you. It was actually my best bet of the day there, too. So I completely agree with you.
I also think, Kyle, the odds watch on Fierceness is going to be very interesting.
Yes.
Rapoli brings about 300 people to the track. So, they're all betting him. He's going to take money. He's going to take, what money he's going to take? The every other race money.
Yep. Correct.
Really scientific, proven handicapping angle. But I don't know. Isn't he a hard horse?
Yeah.
Isn't he a horse who could win this race by 5? Who's a hard horse to bet on, Kyle?
Yes. Yeah, you're betting a horse that, either runs off the screen or he gets looked in the eye and falls back to 24.5 lengths as he did in the Derby. I mean, he's gonna go fast in this race, Paul. I don't see a way, like I said, barring some insanity at the break.
Yeah.
He's going to go fast, and he's gonna have to show that he can run well while still being looked up going, gonna end up going, 47 to the half mile, 46 and something to the half mile.
Yeah, now if he does, and look, there's no one better than getting a horse on the front end and controlling pace than Johnny V. If he does, he's going to have some speed horses chasing. If he gets to the lead, there's a couple of other jockeys who have not done a very good job in this race, because that would be a scenario for him to, look, if he goes around there at even a quick pace and he's 2 up at the 8th pole, I wouldn't be holding my breath underwater waiting for him to get caught.
Yep, I don't disagree.
So I'll tell you what, it's a 6-horse race, and we all want 12-horse fields, but Pony Express, you would say, is an outsider. But again, I'm just so intrigued by this Sadler move, presuming unless he scratches and I'm talking for nothing. And Gould, we talked about how well Batten Down ran. Well, Gould's Gold chased Batten Down all the way around. And I know, as someone makes a good point in the chat, it's hard to go for the Ohio Derby to winning a grade 2 at Saratoga. I get it. But you're going to get paid. If Batten Down's 5-1 and Sierra Leone is 3-5, I know who I'm betting.
Yeah, right. And Edberg brings up, he says, I hope Sierra Leone or Fierceness wins so I can bet against them in the Travers. So, it's all scenario, Paul. But again, there looks to be a lot of speed in this race. Sierra Leone, again, just on paper, he probably should win this race, but we've seen it in the past. We've seen it with the last couple, sadly, that he gets in his way. He gets his own way. And if he can get out of his own way, he's probably the best 3-year-old in the country right now. It's just a matter of, can he get out of his own way?
And Sierra Leone is training very well. Interestingly, after the Belmont, Chad went back to training him solo instead of in company, and is training very well. But according to our good friend Richie Migliori, who I listened to today on Steve Bick, the horse training the best of the whole lot is Seize the Gray.
Yeah.
So there's another X factor for you. I mean, there's a horse. We know that if he gets his way on the lead, what can happen, because we saw it.
We've seen it. Yep.
So
that's exactly it.
I'll tell you what, I am very much looking forward to this race. I'm going. I normally wouldn't be going till Sunday, but I'm going up there early to see Matt Miller. Oh, and Howard too.
Oh, yeah.
But primarily Matt and Philly Joe and those guys, and Howard too, but mostly the other guys. So I'm looking forward to the race. I really am. As I say, I'm certainly rooting for the 3, regardless of whom I bet. But I mean, I'm certainly going to have Sierra Leone as an A in my grid, but probably not the only A, Kyle.
I think that's fair.
Healthy skepticism, Kyle.
Yeah, for just a healthy skepticism for your Saturday afternoon. We've been hurt too many times, Paul. We really have. Either way, Paul's going 1-3-6. I'm going 3-1-6 in the grade 2 Jim Dandy. Paul, we'll keep it moving along here. Race number 11 is a state bred allowance N1X, and man, this is another one, man. This is an absolute doozy. Field of 10 with many also eligibles, many MTOs, but of course, the full body of 10 remains. Morning line favorite is the number 2, Rabaha, for what Noah referred to as James Bond. It's Harold Bond for Kendrick Carmouche. Second choice is the number 1, Clear Conscience, for Lisa Lewis and Javier Castellano. Third choice is 9-2, the number 8, Whistler's Honor, for Jorge Abreu, with IRAD picking up that mountain. Paul, I told you you're gonna laugh, man. We might need to do something together on Saturday, because we are locked up again.
Let's do it
with the number 1.
Let's do it. We'll play a pick 5. Let's play a pick 5,
because we're and again, we'll talk about it the last race as well. But we're both locked up. Number 1, Clear Conscious, Paul. I know you're a big fan of Lisa Lewis's, as you touched on in the chat when we talked about her in her first race at the Spa this year. But That last race is very good, Paul, and I don't think there's a whole lot of speed. So the fact that he can sit close, I think makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, and I think post does matter a little bit in this configuration, Kyle. A much shorter run to the turn, obviously, than a 1.125 miles. And I want to be inside here. They're on the Melon Turf course, which is the outer course. But I think this horse ran well. Rabaha ran a big number, but at 15-1, and Dakota Country took a lot of money in the last race today, and did not do anything. So I want no part of Rabaha at 3-1 in this race. I have in my notes from the last race, had everything his own way. The horse that I think is the fuzzy in here, Kyle, is the 10. You have him third. I have him second. We're back to Mr. Pratt again.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I wrote after watching the replay, wide trip and the pace really fell apart late in that race.
Mm-hmm.
This horse was right there at the 16th pole, and then the pace just really, it just fell apart. He was stretching out to 1 mile and a 16th last time. Stays at that distance. Has a bullet work. Again, picks up Pratt on the turf. This is a tough race, but this is the type of horse I want to have at a number. I'm not so sure anything Pratt rides is going at 8-1, but I want to have a horse like this in the mix.
I don't disagree with you, and the fact that, like I said, this was one of those horses that's going to sit close. All the spectrum NYRA, but giving Pratt over him is an absolute complete upgrade on the turf. And being that this was going to get to sit close, Paul, I'll show the time for him. They actually have good friends of the podcast, the Delphi runner, Gem Mint 10, who I have in second, and the 10 in third. I think basically before this pace scenario, they said time from has it favoring front runners. They actually have the 10 out in front of Gem Mint 10. I don't think that's how it's going to run. I think it's going to be 4 on the inside, 10 on the outside, and basically they'll try to merry-go-round around the entire check. But you see the number 1, Clear Conscience, back on the inside there, I think is the exact trip that the 1 wants, the exact trip that the 1's going to get. And off that last race, which is a very good race at Aqueduct at 1.125 miles, just not getting there, but chasing up a pretty quick pace at Aqueduct, going 1:10.3 at 1.125 miles on the Aqueduct turf course. That's no joke by any means. That's a very fast time. And the fact that she almost did get there is one thing that I like. Was well backed on that race as well. I think this horse has always wanted the turf, has been good on the dirt, ran well in the Sin at Gulfstream, but I just think this is exactly what this horse wants, Paul.
Kyle, back to that time form. Could you pull that back up? And where do they have the 10 finishing if they think he's going to the lead? Yeah, I'll tell you what. If the 10 goes to the lead like they project, I want the 10 on top.
Yeah,
with Pratt out there meeting out the speed.
Yeah.
Is Howard in on this horse? Is this one of the Delphi horses?
Yes, I believe so. I think one of the ones he's very little in, but yeah, I believe it's the one that he is in. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that also has some numbers. That 84 2 races back where he just lost by a nose.
Yep.
Certainly, Gem Mint 10 looks like the type of horses Uncle will have in a reverse tri-key type of situation, doesn't he?
Yeah, I just think this horse has done way better on the lead than he has when he gets a little bit pressured and off the lead. If he's able to get up front on the lead, I think he's going to at least hang around for a piece. And I think you'll probably get not necessarily, but probably at least 5-1 on this horse. I think there's a lot of other horses that are going to take kind of that middling priced money. Jeffrey Amster brings up a good point, says the 10's taking blinkers off, so they're probably going to take back. I wouldn't disagree with you by any means, as you'll see, go back to the 10 here. When this horse had blinkers off, which is the first 2 races this horse ran on the turf, one was on the lead and one was sitting 2.5 back. So not the biggest difference, but I think they might just be trying to relax him, Paul, with that blinkers off. So that could be.
Yeah, I wasn't saying I think the horse is going to go to the lead. I said if time form is right and the horse goes to the lead, I would want to have a win ticket on the horse. I think his chances of winning, certainly not automatic, but
right.
I would want this horse. I would agree with Jeff there, and Jeff is a very astute guy, by the way, just in case the rest of you don't know that. I would agree with that, which is fine.
Yeah,
because I'm not going to lose any sleep tonight, Kyle, worrying about Pratt working out a trip. Other things I can lose sleep over. Yeah. That's not going to be one of them.
You and I both.
I might lose sleep over. Are there going to be any of those cinnamon buns left when I get to Saratoga? Now that's what I could lose sleep over.
I'm going to be
okay, because my good friend Matt Miller said he hopes that they would save one for me, and we think the odds of that are about 99-1 that there'd be anything left. Okay. That's what I'll lose sleep over. I'm not going to lose sleep over Pratt working out a trip.
You hit me right in the heart, Paul. I admit, dude, at Marshall Graham's house, those cinnamon rolls are absolutely fantastic. Paul, last horse we'll talk about real quick, and then we'll move on. Is you have a horse in here it was a jumper, then comes off of your good friend Kerry Bryan, now back to Mike Maker. Ran a good race last time out off of a very long layoff, but second off for Maker. I mean, this is one that might need a little bit of pace, but at least underneath could be at least worth a look.
I mean, turf reclamation projects, and does anyone do it better than Maker?
No, yeah.
And it's probably going to be a lot easier for the horse to run without having to jump over the hurdles. You would think you'd like it better, right?
You would think, yeah.
You would think, right? And they don't have to go around 7 times.
That's true.
No, and by the way, by Flintshire, by the way.
Yep.
Had a winner yesterday, I want to say. There was a progeny of Flintshire to win this week. Again, 10-1 with Maker and Tyler Flintshire. We talked about how much we liked the one, Kyle. Yep. This horse was a length behind the one last time?
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I thought the 7 is a now that would be the type of horse I would play in a reverse tri-key.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Something exactly like this where you might not have enough pace to get home, but something in the third or second variety could definitely be in the cards for the number 7 Topic Changer at 10-1. Paul, we'll keep moving on the last race. I'm going 1-4-10. Paul's going 1-10-7. Guys, before we get to the last race, little reminder, please go down below the video player here on YouTube if you're watching it as live or watching as a replay. Please hit the like button and please hit the subscribe button down below if you're enjoying the content of tonight's show. We go live every single Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and now Saturday and Sunday for Saratoga today. Monday for horsing around, Wednesday for betting and boozing with the young guys and me, and Thursday for picks and ponies like today with Howard, Pete, Paul, and sometimes special guests. Paul, last race here. You see what I'm talking about, Paul? Look at the bottom of the screen. See what I'm talking about?
All right, Kyle.
This is
we're going. The only question, Kyle, is it going to be ABC or Caveman? We're playing a ticket.
We have to at this point, Paul. I know we're not too. People say we're not very creative in this last race, which we're not. But I mean, number 4, Summer Whirl, who's your morning line favorite, who Paul and I both have on top. 5-2 morning line, Graham Motion, Johnny V, off of a very good last race. Second choice on the morning line, number 1, Miss City Girl, Clement and Rosario. Third choice, the number 10, North End Lady at 5-1 on the morning line for Barclay Tag, who you don't see run too many anymore, and Pratt aboard once again. Paul, the number 4 is a horse that, again, you and I both have on top coming off the last race at Aqueduct, just losing by a neck to Island Fox as the favorite. But, I mean, Graham Motion off with these steadily improving horses is someone I really look to in this spot.
Yeah, although I got to say, Kyle, the horse is pace dependent.
Yep,
and
I don't disagree.
These state bred turf roots that show up in the last race, chaos ensues seemingly about as often as form they run to form. I mean, I picked the horse. Don't get me wrong; it's probably a lazy pick, but I thought there were at least a few horses, if not several, who I just thought had no chance. Or in the case of a CC, you would have to say no prayer. Although that horse might have a prayer. Ran third in one of his back races. So, yeah, again, this is the type of race, Kyle. If we want to be spread out, if we're lucky enough to be alive in this race, Kyle, the ideal scenario would be to be alive with all A's, and in this race have like 2 A's, 2 B's, 2 C's, and a D if we can work it. So
I wouldn't disagree with you. My mic's trying to attack me. I don't know what's going on there. Either way, yeah.
But
I agree with you that she's pace dependent. And the one thing I found interesting, air gates obviously are fantastic, but they don't ever really run that well on the turf. I mean, 7% for air gate and turf routes versus 21% in dirt routes. So that's always something I look at as in, why is this Arrogate, why are these Arrogates on the turf? There's a little bit of turf breeding there, 2 for 16 with the Dams runners, but one of our highest buyers is a 90, and that is Harmon was a pretty decent sin and turf router on the West Coast. Summer World we talked about. Rube Bellamy has turf running, so not necessarily completely without turf running, even though Arrogate as the sire. I just think Summer World could get a lot of speed to run into, as we talked about a little bit. Miss City Girl Paul is another one that I have a second, you have third, and then we'll get to the 10. Another one that seems a little bit pace dependent, and I know we're going basically double, deep closers. At least I am in this race, which could be an issue.
Yeah, what's time form say about this one? I looked at it, I just forget.
No, you're good, and I'll show it here. They have 3, not necessarily labeled as a fast pace, but they have 3 to the lead going out there.
Yeah, which
these
is what you
races
want,
are always a little bit rough, obviously, because there's not too much. You don't have so much to go off of as in a race, like the Jim Dandy or something like that, or these optional claimers. But they do have 3 going out the lead between the 5 Autumn, the 8 Princess Summer, and the 10 North End Lady, who we both have in the mix somewhere. So yeah, definitely one thing you want to see, especially for us to have 2 out of 3 pretty deep closers in this rip.
Yeah, I would encourage people. I don't know how many people use the workout reports. I do. I think they could be very helpful in a race like this. This is a race that I'm looking at it as you're talking, Kyle, and this is a race that's going to require a little more review.
Yeah,
because I don't think it is going to be all that fast. Now, I like the time form. If there's 3 battling, then it could in effect be faster than the time shows, if that makes any sense. But I have the 4 at 5-2 and the 1 at 9-2, and they both are pace dependent. I'm going to have to look at. I mean, I'm certainly going to use them. Look out for Pratt. Maybe Pratt will just send from the 10.
Yeah, and
on
like
North End Lady
said, Barclay Tag, doesn't put too many out there. 39 just in 2024, but that last time out took a new route to almost winning that last race. First time going to the lead for North End Lady, and it definitely worked out in that regard. And that was on Belmont Stakes weekend in one of the maiden special weights, New York breds in there. So definitely one that makes a lot of sense. A lot of people, Paul, are pointing out the number 5 Autumn in this race for Carlos Martin, who last time out put the blinkers on first time and ended up running really well and just missing. You get 6-1 on the morning line here. Obviously, Liscano hasn't had the best start to the meet, but this is another one that if the pace doesn't end up, heating up a little bit, this one could also be part of the scenario as well.
Yeah, no, and look, you look at these jockey numbers. Do you realize Luis Saez is like 2 for 50? I mean, folks, it is hard to win freaking races at Saratoga. If I had time, I'd go back on my computer right now to, I think it was 2019, and doing a little notebook. And Tyler was like, halfway through the meet was like 3 for 48 or 2. Yeah. Junior Alvarado. Now, look, I'm biased, but I will tell you this: if he he rode the horse of the year perfectly. You were at the races, he had no margin of error to win those 2 Breeders' Cups. He had 2 wins going into today, and he won. So, Johnny V, I'm looking at Johnny V, 3 for 33. Okay,
Yeah.
Hall of Famer. So, I agree. You a guy like Lascano, you say, well, he's off to a tough start. Well, it's a pretty good room that, you now added Frankie Dettori this year. Oh, by the way, on a full-time basis. I think this race requires a little further review. Before we put in our ticket, Kyle, we're going to have a little more review of this race.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you by any means. The last horse I'll bring up that a lot of people are bringing up, or that Jeffrey Hamster brought up in the chat, and he said, watch out for the 8. Maker off the claim for Mike Dubb, puts blinkers on and going for the lead. This is a horse, the old zero buyer angle, Paul, is what we like to call this one. But
Uncle Howard, that's one of his favorites.
Off the claim, Joe Sharp to Maker, who's fantastic off the claim, picks up Jose Ortiz, puts the blinkers on. This is almost like a complete fresh look for this horse in a race like this. First time turf routing, first time blinkers, new trainer, new jockey. But I mean, he hasn't run a step by any means in his first 2. But
I know Maker. We talked about Maker, but boy, I don't see a lot of turf pedigree without going too deep. But again, this is the type of race that of 20 to 1 shot wins and the pick 6 carries over.
Yeah, or just completely blows up. I don't disagree with you by any means. Definitely one that's good. Out of all races in this sequence, this is definitely the most spready one out of the entire card. I'm sure we can agree on that, Paul. And there's a lot of things that can happen, whether one gets on a lead or they end up going 46 to the half mile because 4 horses end up running for the lead, and then we are stuck in that.
Well, and exactly, Kyle. You make a great point, and the fact that they're maidens just adds to that unpredictability. You'll get a horse, you say, geez, how the hell did that horse? Well, I mean, none of them have won, okay? The one's 0 for 25. What's the one good? Ramon Vasquez won a race today. Had a really, really good ride on Reddington today. That Kyle, you'll be proud of me, by the way, today. I was thinking of you. Dolomite went off at 4 to 5 in the 8th today, right? And how do you turn a 4 to 5 shot into a 20 to 1 shot? You bet a cold double with Reddington.
There you go.
At 7 to 1 and 1990 to 1 later. There you go.
You're sitting pretty, and you're gonna buy. And like I said, you're gonna, when you finally get done with all that writing, Paul, you're gonna have a nice, relaxing trip in Saratoga. That'll pay for plenty of beverages, I'm sure, come the vacation. Either way, Paul, you have one best bet, and it's one that, again, like you said, it's after my own heart, Paul. You're taking your best opinion of the entire day and trying to spin it around. Race 9, you're going a $30 double, 8-1, $10 double, 8-3. Of course, that's West Hollywood that we talked about for a long time, into Sierra Leone on the top end, and on the $10 double going into Batten Down, Paul.
Yeah, and that was predicated on as I said, I think there could be some value in beating risk tolerance. So that was my thinking there.
Yep.
That you're not gonna retire with a Sierra Leone. An 8-3 would be okay. I'd be happy to see what an 8-3 return to the ADW NYRA bets account. That was my thinking there, Kyle. We're always looking for value in these plays. If we can, and I thought there might be a little value beating risk tolerance in that race.
Yep, and you'll see me. I have one bet that's very similar to that. So obviously, Paul, good luck with there, and then obviously we'll talk about it as we go on. For the Power Picks, if you guys aren't familiar, please go and subscribe to those. Writing Saratoga Power Picks every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this week, or every single week of the Saratoga meet, and you'll get them for a cheaper price. If you already subscribed to the normal Power Picks for $4 a weekend, all those links are in the description, and they go to hhhracingpodcast.com. These are my best bets, guys. And we talked about Skelly, Paul. You either have to really trust Skelly or you have to go somewhere else. I'm going to choose the way of trusting, maybe play a backup with my top pick in race number 5, which most likely. I think Who's the King for Saffie Joseph, if he gets the lead, I think is going to be tough in that race. I think the interesting horse to the outside is number 10, Game Warden at 7-2. Wouldn't take him at 7-2, but if the doubles are enough, based from the 4 to the 10, might warrant a double play with both of them. If not, I think 4-6 is much warranted in that spot. Like we talked about earlier, either you trust Skelly with himself or you go a bunch of different ways. Paul even said, even singling would inherit the most value in that race because you're going to get 3 horses around the same type of odds in the Vanderbilt. So I went 4-10 over 6. And in race number 8, I started a pick 3, which is something I don't normally do very often. But Scarlet Poppy, Paul, we talked about for Ward, who's absolutely lighting up the Oklahoma. If she gets the lead, she could be really tough. West Hollywood trying to beat Risk Tolerance. And then Sierra Leone, hopefully that spices up a little bit. And I have Sierra Leone in there, but also I think Batten Down could get the jump on a lot of horses like that with a lot of speed and be able to get a good win for Bill Mott.
I like that ticket. I like it.
So trying, $25 pick 3, Paul, try and hit it 25 times and take my, go to the bar afterwards or something, like try and have a good time.
Have you been reading a book or anything that will prompt you to think like that?
Where is I don't know where. I think I'm gonna put it on the bookshelf out there. I see it back there. Yep. Matt Miller, of course, writing better way of thinking is what Paul is referencing. Bat's gonna watch this later. He said when he started the show, too loud out there with the guys at Saratoga at dinner. But Paul, like I said, thanks for coming on, man. I know someone's got to pick up the slack around here when the boys are on vacation, and who better than me and you to talk about a good Lake Pike 5 at Saratoga?
No, it's great. It's great. And we will have to talk before Saturday.
Yeah, we absolutely will. To everyone out there as well, thank you guys all so much for joining us. Unfortunately, we won't have Hawthorne joining us tonight. Of course, they started running a couple weeks ago on Thursday. So Jim Miller, unfortunately, wasn't to make it home in time to be able to get on the podcast. But of course, we will see him come next week. They do have a very, very good Sunday card, though, with Turf Stakes with the return of the Breeders' Cup champion No Balls, who's running in that race. Also, one-timer for Larry Ravelli will also be in those stakes as well. A really good card and a really good sequence for one of the best, probably one of, if not the best place for horse players to spend their money in terms of takeout. Low Nation win place show at 12% takeout. Fantastic bet all the way through, and Jim Miller's really trying to go out there and put these bets out there. They have carryovers a lot of the time. They had a carryover pick 6 and the pick 5 today into this. I'm not sure if they carried over today or not, but that'll obviously be something to look forward to on Sunday if it did happen as well. But Hawthorne on Sunday, fantastic card up there. For my co-hosts, Paul Halloran, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode number 363 of Picks and Ponies, covering 2024 Jim Dandy Day at Saratoga. And I'm doing the bet and booze and outro just because we can around here. Paul, until next time, everyone, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a great night.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.